Sayer G here, and I'm making this video to talk plainly about a concerning bill that has been introduced into the US Congress. This is the H.R. 6666 bill, also known as COVID Testing, Reaching, and Contacting Everyone Act, or the TRACE Act. It's highly concerning to me for a number of reasons. The first of which is that $100 billion would be dispersed to hiring what some call an army of contact tracers. Estimates vary between 100,000 to 300,000 people would be hired, trained, and then dispatched to go to individuals' homes where they would conduct diagnostic testing for COVID-19 and other related activities, including contact tracing, also enforcing quarantine, that's in the letter of this bill, as well as for other purposes. This is very broad and very dangerous language. When left to the discretion of the United States government, we do not know how this act will be applied specifically, but we do know that this puts teeth on the agenda that most of us now realize was based on faulty, inflated statistics, meaning the original justification for shutting down the entire economy in the United States, as well as suspending most of our civil liberties, as well as reducing basic human contact between the citizenry, was premised upon case fatality rates that were believed to be orders of magnitude higher than what actually came to pass. And so 2.2 million Americans, it was estimated, would die if they didn't lock the country down. This was based on a report from Imperial College, and it has now been shown to be absolutely inaccurate. And we see now that even Dr. Fauci, who is the head of the White House Coronavirus Task Force, in his own published editorial in the New England Journal of Medicine last month, estimated that case fatality rates are only about 0.1%, which is the same as seasonal flu. The entire country was locked down under false assumptions. And now that we know that this is not an inexorably lethal virus, instead what's happening is they are consolidating and cementing in the medical police state that we have all witnessed descend upon us over the past few weeks and months. This bill would effectively solidify that control. What would happen is they would go to individuals' homes, they would apply tests, many of which will cause false positives, which is a huge issue that isn't being discussed very openly in the media or by the government. Those false positives would then alert these contact tracers to look for others within your family, within your friends, within your colleagues who may have been exposed to an infection that may not actually be diagnosable through the very tests that they're claiming will identify whether you've been affected or not. And so ultimately what we see here is the crystallization of a surveillance state. Your home will no longer be your castle. They will come to your home, they will coerce, and they may force entry. This is something we know because the World Health Organization Program Director Mike Ryan stated that they will be intending to go into people's homes and they will remove family members if they feel that they are either infected or at risk for infection. This is highly concerning. Now in Ventura County, there's also officials stating that they will follow very similar procedures. They will isolate, they will force quarantine individuals within homes. The H.R. 666 bill is very vague, but what we do know is that the figure of $100 billion comes out elsewhere, which was the Rockefeller Foundation came out with their plan, which was on April the 21st, which supposedly takes all the plans that have been introduced and creates a summary of what they intend to enforce. That plan also had a suspiciously identical price tag of $100 billion, as well as it was reported that they were intending to hire between 100 to 300,000 contact tracers. This bill is concerning because we already know what the Rockefeller Foundation intends to do. This 30-page document goes into how they will enforce a real-time surveillance. They will attempt to do weekly checks on the majority of Americans. They will try to digitalize what your immune status is, as if they could actually ascertain that with these tests, which is highly specious. This is a very concerning document. I encourage people to look it up. And why is it so concerning? Well, one of the reasons is if you go back to what happened before some call the plandemic, Event 201 was a global pandemic exercise. It was coordinated by Johns Hopkins and Bloomberg School of Public Health, the Center for Health Security, World Economic Forum, and Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. This happened in October of last year, and they simulated a coronavirus pandemic that resulted in the very same things we're seeing right now, okay, which is like a medical, military, industrial police state. This is what we're seeing form before our eyes. It just so happens that all three players here have funding relationships with the Gates Foundation, the World Economic Forum, as well as the Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security. So the Rockefeller plan was already drafted, according to what I believe, before any of this went down. And this has been the end game, which is to, again, digitalize pretty much everything, surveil pretty much everything, and lock people down under the auspices of a deadly virus that they're trying to protect us from. This is ultimately what I would call a false flag, meaning this is not about a virus. This is a controlled demolition of our economy. It's a intentional suspension of our constitutional, civil, human rights. And ultimately, you can do something about it. What I believe is the best solution at this point is use our platform, Stand for Health Freedom. It's a nonprofit 501c4. You can go there. You can make your voice heard, standing firm in your basic constitutional rights, which is that you do not consent to H.R. 6666 and that you have every right to communicate your non-consent to elected officials and lawmakers. Again, go to Stand for Health Freedom, click on the latest campaign, enter in your information so we can look up who your local representatives are. This will send a strong message to them that you do not consent to this type of legislation and that you have a basic human right to not be visited by an army of so-called contact tracers who intend on, again, testing, isolating, quarantining, and when a vaccine comes ready, which they're saying there'll be a second wave in the fall, and when they say these things, let's listen, because they already gave us forewarning of this original pandemic. It was already planned out. This is going to be our chance right now to stand up and say no and assert your basic right to your own body, being your sovereign body that you control, to your children's bodies. You are the parent. You have a right and responsibility to make these choices. Do not let them take away these rights. Okay, so we've set this up for you. Please feel free to share this as widely as you can. Together, we have a lot of power. Okay, we can do this. Thank you so much for your support.